A very good morning to all. On behalf of VELAMMAL Institute of Technology, I would like to welcome all the participants, dignitaries, respected HOD, and my dear faculty members for a second day of AICT sponsored Sttp on Assessment and Engineering Education, a pedagogical approach. So, a very good morning to all. So, I'd like to express my sincere thanks for giving me an opportunity to welcome the gatherings. So before that, now I will be briefing about the objectives which the participants have to follow for attending this Sttp. So first point in the guidelines which we need to follow is so before giving the guidelines, I will be briefing about the objectives. So objective of this Sttp is so assessment is considered as the most important role in steering the learning process. However, we cannot confine to one particular methodology as the best assessment method for a course. An assessment plan helps in selecting the right testing method and decides on the relative weight of each assessment for the final result of a course. This also helps to ensure that the assessment addresses the intended learning outcomes, which makes an assessment plan a helpful tool for examiners and an important instrument for quality assurance. An assessment matrix is designed to ensure that all the selected learning objectives are covered in the assessment, which helps to make certain assessment will be both valid and reliable. This is done by using different methods to set the cutoff score by using rubrics. The participants will be put forward to apply quality criteria for the construction of assessments and assessment items to improve the quality assessments and education, which have huge impact on the future education and careers of students. Now it's my duty to inform all the participants about the rules and regulation of AICT sponsored Sttp. I kindly request all participants to listen to the rules and regulations carefully and follow this meticulously. So number one, participants are solicited to attend all the sessions. So we expect all the participants to attend all the sessions without skipping any of the sessions. Log into Zoom app using your registered email ID. Change your profile name with participant ID, which was mailed by us in Excel file. So it will be easy for us to track the attendance. So please change your profile name with the participant ID. The participant ID has been mailed by us in Excel file. And participants are requested to mute your microphones and camera during the sessions. So always mute your microphone and cameras during the sessions. So all are needed to join in our WhatsApp group. So link is available in the participation confirmation mail. So please, we request you to join in our WhatsApp group so that we can communicate the up-to-date activities then and there. As per AICT norms, 80% attendance and minimum 60% score to be secured in all the assessments, so which is mandatory to secure this certificate from AICT. So we expect 80% attendance from all the participants. Feedback and attendance in Google Forms will be posted at the end of every session after the question and answer session in the chat window only. So attendance, feedback for attendance and feedback form in the form of Google Forms will be posted in the chat window so that you can fill your details at the end of this session. So assessment in Google Forms will be of MCQ type, multiple choice question type. So submit the assessment through Google Forms only, which will be posted in WhatsApp group at the end of the day. Assessment forms must be submitted before next day by 9:30 a.m. after which link will get disabled. So assessment forms will by 9:30 a.m. get disabled. All the participants are requested to download apps which are instructed by the experts during the session as a part of activity in Sttp. If you have any query, please raise your hand in Zoom app Our session coordinator will assist you. So participants are requested to type all your questions in chat window, which will be answered by the expert at the end of the session. Participants are requested not to post any verbal crutches in chat window, like good morning, good afternoon, or okay, like this. So all the recorded virtual session will be available in our YouTube channel at the end of respective slots. So if any queries regarding technical issue, inform through WhatsApp group. So this is about the guidelines which participants have to follow. Thank you.
Babu sir. Morning, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will start.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, sir.
Okay. Okay. Good morning. Good morning, sir. On behalf of VELAMMAL Institute of Technology, I would like to welcome you, sir, for this AICT sponsored Sttp on assessment in engineering education, a pedagogical approach. So now it's my privilege to highlight about the speaker's profile to all the gatherings. So Dr. Pradeep Kumar Chaudhary teaches economics at the Zakir Hussain Center for Educational Studies, School of Social Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. Before joining JNU, he worked as a regular faculty at the Institute for Studies in Industrial Development and as a research fellow at Public Health Foundation of India and Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, New Delhi. His PhD is in the area of economics of education from National University of Educational Planning and Administration, New Delhi. Currently, he is collaborated in a major project titled Delhi Research Implementation and Innovation with IIT Delhi, sponsored by Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. Recently, he completed an international collaborative study with an experimental setup in Stanford University, USA, that aims to assess and improve student learning in engineering and higher education in an international comparative perspective. Also, sir has completed 2 other studies sponsored by ICSSR and UGC that examine the issue of inequality in educational opportunities among marginalized youths in India and the importance of financial incentives to bridge this. His research has dealt with various aspects of applied development economics, especially issues related to education, health, and labor. Specific research interests include privatization of education and market policies, educational inequalities, school choice, education and labor market, and family investment in education. He is editing a volume co-authored titled Context Educational Studies in India, Location of Research, Policy and Practices is forthcoming by Routledge. His research has been published in several peer-reviewed journals like Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences, Asia and the Pacific Policy Studies, Economic and Political Weekly, Journal of Social Choice, Quality Assurance in Education, Millennial Asia, Higher Education for the Future, and also has chapters in edited books, reports published by Oxford University and Springer. Dr. Chaudhary has visited several countries to share his research work in some of the world's best universities, universities of Oxford, Paris School of Economics, University of York, University of Ottawa, National University of Singapore, Central European University, Izmir University of Economics, and International Institute of Social Studies. One of his recent works is accepted for presentation in the American Educational Research Association in 2021 annual meeting. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now the time is yours, sir. I am under this session, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for such a wonderful introduction. I don't think I deserve so many things. I apologize for my late because I got some technical difficulty. Actually, I was trying to log in, then internet connectivity was not good, so I got some difficulty. Sorry for that. Yeah, I'm late by 10 minutes. I hope so. I'm really sorry for that because I tried initially, but later on I got difficulty. I should start with saying that I am in the last technical, like the training program. I also said that I am an odd man out because I am a social scientist, economist by training. So I am addressing a gathering which is different kind, that is engineers largely who are teaching engineering graduates. I feel privileged to address such issues, such audience, because I usually our understanding is largely on social science discipline, and the kind of what you call the kind of interaction that we do is largely again with social scientists. But what we call speaking to engineers who are engaged in engineering colleges, that's to teachers at all India level, is really a privilege for me. I thank VELAMMAL Institute of the VIT for providing me this opportunity. Basim and Kalipan sir and all others who have given me a chance to interact with audience, and which is really I really look forward to learn a lot from all of you. The only matching that I can say in this platform is I work on engineering education. So that is one important issue, that like one important point that I want to mention, that my PhD was on engineering graduates. I looked at their labor market aspirations, household spending on engineering education, loan market, and all that. Also, to some extent, also quality of engineering education, both assessment, pedagogical approach, and all that. So what I will do in today's lecture, I will try to focus on the issue from a social science perspective. Let me clarify. So I am not a person who can look at technically, but I look at from a social science perspective, and I look forward all of your engagement. You consider this as an interactive session. If there will be any point in between, you can raise, so I will address to that. Otherwise, if you feel that that will disturb, then we can take it in the end. That is also there, but as you wish. I don't have any problem in taking points in between. That I want to clarify from my side. That's one point. Then I think I will have, this is 2 hours, so I will take around 1 hour plus, maybe 1 hour, 10 minutes to talk. And then I think we'll interact. So there will be enough time for interaction. So we'll interact a lot. Thank you very much for this again. So let us start. What is there in my mind? So let us start in this. In a fresh morning, it's important to highlight some important issues which will benefit both of us and also the society at large. Before getting into engineering education, let me bring up some starting points for all of us, because we all are part of the higher education system. That nobody can deny. You are also part of higher education system, teaching in engineering colleges and institutes. I am also part of higher education system because I am also teaching in a university. So we all are part of the higher education system. So before getting into engineering education in specific, let me begin with explaining some of the important changes, or I would say contours, of higher education in India. So before getting into the core idea of assessment and all, it's important to understand where we are in the expansion of higher education system in the country. If you see, for the last 20 years, particularly after 1990s, because 1990 plays a critical role in overall shaping the economy and society because of the post-liberalization. Like we entered into post-liberalization era. That is the era of LPG, liberalization, privatization, and globalization policy. So that is a critical point. So that's the point I'm starting with. So there are historical accounts to higher education in pre-1990s also. That is after, let's say, after independence. But I am not getting into that. Let me start at least from post-1990s. In the post-1990s, an important feature of the expansion of higher education system is there is a radical shift in thinking on the nature and role of higher education. This is an important point we all should understand. When I'm saying that there is a radical shift in the, I'm not getting only into policy, I'm saying in the thinking itself, and also on the role of higher education in the society at large and India in specific. Why I am saying so? This point clearly specifies that in the pre-1990s, largely the expansion of higher education system was by the government. Let's say the state plays a critical role in expansion of higher education system. But after 1990s, there is a clear shift. The shift is, the second point says, the shift is there is the policies that came in post 1990 that questioned the role of the state. The role of the state is minimized in this context. Let me clarify. And once the role of the state, when I'm saying role of the state means role of the government, is minimized, and slowly what happened, there is an withdrawal of the state from the provisioning of higher education in the country. This point needs to be very clearly specified. It's being specified in literature and also in the policy domain that in post 1990s, in the post like LPG, privatization, liberalization, privatization, and globalization era, the role of the state is minimized. Point number one, because the role of the state is the state's role in providing higher education is being slowly withdrawn, and that place is being taken by the private sector. That place is taken by the private sector. So once there is a withdrawal of the government, withdrawal of the state from the provisioning of higher education, so it gave a space. It gave a space to enter to the market. Like market started entering into higher education system, which I have said in the third point. There is that enhanced or that gave a space to promote an increase in the role of the markets. When I'm saying market, large in the private players. So private players entered into the market, into the higher education system, in the expansion as well as provisioning of higher education in the country. That I have said, even the literature and policy document clearly says that it patronizes higher education as a marketable commodity. So there is a clear shift that higher education as a public good or higher education as a merit good to a higher education as a marketable commodity. So this shift plays a critical role in the entire policy discourse in post 1990s. So that this is an important feature of the expansion of higher education system in the last 30 years. That shift is linked with several other interesting things, including quality assessment and all. So that I will come across slowly in the latter part of my presentation. So if you see, I'm giving an example from engineering education because that is my field and that is also your field, all of your fields. So most of my examples will be from engineering education. If you see the latest data, that Aicte data in 2019-20, if you see, close to 95% of the total enrollment in engineering education is in private colleges. Close to 95%. This is all India level. And if you get into like some states like Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, southern states, even Maharashtra, you will see that it's almost to 97-98% of the total enrollment in engineering is by the private sector. Similarly is the case for institutions. So there are a large number of institutions which are by the private, which are opened by the private sector. There is a small change in recent year, let's say in last 10 years, because there is less demand for engineering education. The students are not taking enrollment, like students are not opting for engineering education, or that may be one of the reasons for slow, less enrollment in engineering, but still private sector is dominating. That we can't say no to it. So private sector is still dominating. So it's not only about engineering, it's also in medical education, in other professional courses. Also slowly, the new universities that are coming up, the private universities, they have started offering liberal arts courses. So the courses on humanities, social sciences, liberal arts, all other developmental studies, all other courses are also seen as a platform. Private sectors are entering into those courses as well. So that is another important point. So overall, what I am trying to say that there is a declining involvement of government or state in the expansion and provisioning of higher education. That gave a space to private sector to enter. Why that happened? That happened largely because our policy, the macro level, policy at macro level changed. That change I have highlighted, that the two important things I have highlighted. One is withdrawal of the state. That is very clear. Once there is a withdrawal of the state for provisioning of, I am saying not complete withdrawal, I am saying partial withdrawal of the state from provisioning of higher education, that gave a space to private sector to enter into the higher education, expansion of higher education. That's the point number one. Slowly, that actually rendered or that actually brought into the idea that higher education is not a merit good or public good as such, it is also a private good. So that argument has come out not only in the context of India, it's at the global level. Even several international policy documents, even international agencies like World Bank, IMF, and other international agencies, they have also said very clearly that higher education gives private returns to the students. So it's not only that government will spend, let students pay from their pocket in terms of student loans, by taking student loans or from their parents' money. So let students pay from their pocket because they also get benefits. That kind of argument came out. And that actually led to massive expansion of private sector. If you see the data, again, the overall picture of higher education, close to 70% of the total enrollment in 2018-19 data in All India Survey of Higher Education, AISHE report, it says that close to 70% of the total enrollment in higher education is in the private sector. In engineering, medicine, it is more, but overall 70% of the total enrollment in entire higher education system is in India is in private sector, and it is increasing rapidly. That is an important point. It is increasing rapidly. Why it happened? One important point I mentioned, that there is a policy change in post 1990s. Second important thing in the policy discourse that came out is the literature or the policy discourse that tried to recognize the individual benefits, individual economic benefits, or individual private benefits of higher education. It refuses to recognize the vast magnitude of social benefits. There are two important benefits that we get from higher education. One is your benefit, what you get if you get higher education, that is economic benefits or private benefits that you get. The other important benefits that higher education renders is social benefits. So you have to be very clear on these two, because the private benefits means, suppose I am getting higher education, I am doing PhD, so I will get into the labor market, or I am doing a BTech course, I will get into the labor market, so I will earn more, so my life will be better, because I will lead a better life. That is my benefit that I am getting. At the same time, if I am educated, or anyone for that matter is educated, that individual is also rendering some benefits to the society at large. So that is called social benefit in the literature. So higher education gives both economic benefits or private benefits and social benefits. Both kind of benefits it renders. But what happened in post 1990s is that the market, once the market entered into the higher education system, in the expansion of higher education system, it largely recognized the benefit that higher education gives in terms of private benefits. So it tried to ignore, not completely ignore, I would say, but it tried to ignore over the years the kind of social benefits that higher education gives to the society. So that's an important thing that I want to mention. Once, what is the problem with this? There is a serious problem with this. The problem is, if you ignore the kind of benefits, the kind of social benefits that higher education system gives to the society, then definitely you will go for more and more of privatization, because your argument will be that private sector is giving private benefits. Sorry, higher education system is giving private benefits. So once you are trapped with this idea, then definitely you will argue for more privatization. And that's what is happening in the current phase. That more market is entering, private sector is entering almost all areas of higher education, and that is expanding. The idea is you are getting benefits, you have to pay for it. If you argue otherwise, saying that society is getting benefit at large from higher education, any individual's higher education, access to higher education, then definitely you will go for more government investment or public investment. That's an important thing that I want to highlight at this. When I say social benefits, there will be an array of social benefits. There will be several social benefits that higher education renders. I want to give an example. Higher education gives, like it improves status of the women. Let's say women empowerment. More and more women are educated means they are empowered, so they will lead the life better and the society will be better. The literature says if a mother is highly educated, then they will invest more than if a father is educated in the house. Invest more on the children's education. So mother's education has a larger effect. Mother's education has a larger effect on the children's investment on education, given the same level of income. I'm giving an example only how higher education benefits. Similarly, higher education benefits for a better democracy. Higher education benefits for reducing crime. Higher education benefits for a better civilized society. So there are several such examples we can give where we'll relate the higher education and the benefits that it gives to the society. So we all know how higher education gives benefits to the society, that I don't need to explain at this platform particularly, but I just explained how this is what we call giving a scope for higher privatization in the higher involvement of the private sector in higher education sector. That's the core argument of my this slide. The other important change that if we see in the higher education system is this. universities, or for that matter, higher education institutions, which were largely were looked at as a learning space, as an egalitarian learning space, that all will get chance to learn at universities and higher education institutions, is being changed over the years. What is being seen now? Now, when we started treating higher education as a marketable commodity, we started ignoring the several other benefits that university or higher education institution provides to the society. Rather, we try to focus higher universities or higher education institutions as knowledge factories. So that is another important change that we see in the production of higher education or in the production of knowledge. What we see that there is a clear input-output framework in the expansion of higher education. We try to argue that there is an expansion of higher education, and that expansion will help in the production of knowledge, because we are in the era of knowledge economy or knowledge society. So once we are entering into the knowledge economy and knowledge society at the global level, we try to see the role of the university in a very in a narrow sense. We are ignoring that the role of the university or higher education institution in a larger sense, that we are trying to ignore. We are trying to see that like other factories. So university as a factory which produces knowledge. That kind of understanding is being generated again with the massive expansion of private sector. So that I'm saying these are some of the dangerous propositions that we are undertaking in the expansion of higher education system. And if you continue to do so, then the higher education system of the country and also at the global level will be in danger, let's say in next couple of years, maybe in the let's say 10 years down the line. Because what we are trying to do, we are trying to recognize all social economic benefits. We are ignoring social benefits. We are trying to see that universities are knowledge factories or higher education institutions are knowledge factories which produces knowledge. Our lens of looking the higher education system is narrowing down over the years, which is quite dangerous, I would repeat that, which is quite dangerous for the higher education system at large and in India specific, particularly in developing countries. These are some dangerous propositions that we are heading. And one of the important reasons for all these, is maximize increasing presence of private sector. I would say increasing presence of private sector. So over the years, what we are trying to see, the investment in higher education is completely looked at or completely considered to maximize profit. Now, can you say even a couple of higher education institutions which are there in the Indian society for philanthropy? It's very difficult to find. There were some higher education institutions which were philanthropic in nature in India in 70s, 80s. But in post 1990s, up to post 2010 and all, it's very, very difficult for all of us to get any higher education institution which are philanthropic in nature. So there is a clear shift from philanthropy to profit. So there is a clear shift from philanthropy to profit. And that is clearly saying that there is the last point I have said, there is an investment that is happening in higher education system by the private sector is only to maximize profit. You may find a couple of higher education institutions which are philanthropic, that too partly philanthropic in nature. You may not find those are completely philanthropic in nature. They are partly philanthropic in nature. But this is a contrast. I am getting a contrast picture with other countries. If you see in UK, USA, and several other European countries, you will find that there are several higher education institutions which are philanthropic in nature. Still philanthropic in nature. But in India, it's very, very less. If you read the National Education Policy 2020, NEP 2020, that clearly emphasizes on the expansion of higher education system through philanthropic mode. Expansion of higher education system through philanthropic mode. But how we are going to achieve that, I think we need to think over. That strategies are not being said, but it is being emphasized that philanthropic contributions to education needs to be emphasized. That I think I will talk a bit in the latter part of my presentation. So what I am trying to say as some starting points, that the higher education system in the country is changing over the years. and it has it is the one important feature of higher education system in the country is increasing presence of private sector, and it is happening very rapidly. And the way we are getting into that the kind of expansion with the help of private sector will end up in only private sector in higher education system. We will hardly have any public institution which will provide higher education to the country, because this massive expansion is happening. Though it is not in the higher education sector, but I want to mention that the picture is not different in school education sector also. In school education sector also, even if it is considered as part of what we call fundamental right, right to education, as like up to 14 years of age, that is class 1 to 8 is considered as a fundamental right. Still, there is a massive expansion of private schools. So both there is an expansion of private school and private higher education institution. So completely we are trying to shift our entire higher education system from public to private, and it is happening very rapidly. So this is a major change that we are seeing. So I emphasized on this point because some of my points that I will get in the latter part of my presentation will be linked to the kind of arguments that I have taken here, or the kind of I have discussed here. Let us get into engineering education now, which is our focus. If you see that I just mentioned in my presentation also, that engineering education is one discipline where the involvement of private sector is highest. Even in medical education, it is not that much. Engineering education is one sector of higher education where the expansion is very, very rapid. I just said the data that in some states it's close to 100%, like close to 97, 98% enrollment or institution in engineering is through private sector. So let us see what are the major changes that we see in engineering education and also with engineers in the current times, and why those kind of changes that is there in the system. I think many of you might be knowing these important points, but let me clarify some of the points from an interdisciplinary and social science perspective. If you see over the years, there is an increasing use of technology in human life that nobody can deny. We all are now also we are connecting each other because of technology. So there is an increasing use of technology in human life. I should say here that there is a report by World Bank, World Development Report 2018, I think 2018 World Development Report that clearly says changing role of technology. So I think if you are interested in the changing role of technology in the human life and that to labor market, you should read that report. That is freely downloadable from World Bank website, World Development Report, WDR, changing role of technology. So that clearly emphasizes how the role of technology is changing and how it is integrated with the human life. Role of engineering is being redefined. So engineering, I am not a right person, I think, to say all about this to you, but what I have read from the literature that the engineering education as a component of higher education system that is being redefined because the use of technology for the society is being changed, or the integration of technology and society, that the closeness between technology and society has changed over the years. That has really brought a change in the role of engineering for the society. How? Because engineering was like the engineering as a discipline was very narrow at that, let's say in 60s, 70s, but the role of engineering itself has changed because the role of technology is changed for the like the role of technology and society, the relationship has changed. What I am trying to say in this point, that the nature and composition of skills, one important point. There are several other dimensions, but I want to highlight this important dimension, that the nature and composition of skills that are required for an engineering graduate is going through a big change. It's not about only the core skill that a graduate needs to learn through engineering. It needs to learn other social and emotional, like what you call, I would say social and constructive skills, or social and what you call critical skills that are also equally important for an engineer to learn. Why it is so? If you see the World Development Report arguments, this you will what I just mentioned, you will clearly see that an engineer, if an engineer gets the kind of skills that is given in the laboratories or through teaching learning processes in the classroom, that is not enough to cope up with the kind of changes that is happening in the labor market. To adjust with the labor market, to update yourself with the kind of changes that is there in the labor market, you have to learn several other social skills.
Actually, one important thing that's why I have given my topic heading is where do we fail and why. Whatever analysis I have done, I am finding that the kind of quality that we are, the kind of quality graduates that we are expecting, but we are not getting in the context of India. An important reason for that is we are not getting into the kind of skills that an engineer graduate, like engineering graduate, need in the current times. For example, the critical skills, social skills. Then there are several other skills that an engineering graduate, society expects from an engineering graduate that is not being imparted in engineering education. I am not saying all, in some majority of the engineering colleges that is not being imparted, and that is an important point for less quality. We are getting less quality graduates from the engineering education. So what I'm trying to say that there is an increasing role of the engineering education because the role of the technology with society, the integration with the technology, the integration between technology and society has changed, and that is giving this picture to all of us. My second point in this, there are several new and emerging challenges that is coming out for the society that we all know. Those actually require the kind of changes that those are coming up in the society that needs a kind of what we call a different kind of engineers for altogether for the society, which is not happening or which is not being produced in through the engineering colleges. I have highlighted that we need several new and emerging challenges. I have given some examples, like providing more equitable access to information. We have improved a lot on ICT. That is, nobody can deny on that. Particularly, India has improved a lot on ICT, but whether the ICT kind of the information and communication technology that is being produced in the system, Indian society, whether that is being equitable or not, this is actually highly unequal. The distribution is highly unequal. So that is an important. It's not about only the production of ICT or bringing ICT into the forefront, but whether all are getting the use of the ICT is an important thing that we should discuss. That's an important point, or that is an important feature in the Indian society in the expansion of ICT, that they are not being spread equally. So unequal distribution of ICT, information and communication technology. We are also getting into environmental protection, natural resource management, artificial intelligence, and several other important aspects of integrating technology and society that needs a different kind of engineer altogether, or different kind of engineering graduate altogether in the society. But whether the system that we are generating or the kind of system that exists in the current times, whether we are producing that kind of engineering graduates is a question mark. I think that needs to be debated. I also just in the prior slide, I said there is an expansion of knowledge economy that actually leading to impact of specialized human capital. We are no more concentrating on producing human capital in general. We are trying to produce specialized human capital for rapid economic growth. So once we are emphasizing on specialized human capital, then the production of human capital, the system of production of human capital needs to be changed. That's my point. So once we are recognizing that the production of human capital is changing and we are trying to bring in more specialized human capital in the entire production system, then definitely our education system needs to be changed. And when I say specialized human capital, I am referring to engineers, I am referring to medical graduates, I am referring to pharmacists, I am referring to lawyers and all other specialized human capital. But whether we are producing the kind of specialized human capital which are required in the society is another important point that needs to be addressed. Just I said that there is economic liberalization and the growth of ICT or IT, information technology industry, a catalyst for the growth of engineering education. What we see over the years that in the 90s, let's say 90s, even 2000, up to 2000, even 7-8, there is massive expansion of engineering education in the country. Why that happened? That happened because in the post-economic liberalization, there was a need for IT, information technology, that led to expansion of engineering education. And still, I am not saying that it's not required. Till even today, we need more IT people and all that. But the point I'm trying to mention, the kind of IT people that we require, let's say in pre-1990s, is not the case in 2020. Because of the changes that is there in the society at the global level, So the kind of products from the kind of engineering graduates that we are producing in the colleges needs to be changed and needs to be seen in a different context. That is actually not happening. That is an important point. These are some of the important changes that we see in the engineering education. Access to engineering education, even today, the massive expansion of engineering education, an important reason that literature says that there is an aspiration for social mobility by the parents. That it clearly says that access to engineering education gives better social mobility. Access to engineering education gives better social mobility in the society. That is an important point that came out in the literature, even in the policy discourse. And to maintain social status also, that is access to engineering education was part of it. So aspiration for social mobility and also to maintain social status, there are high demand for engineering education. That actually attracted, even in 90s, 2000, even up to 2010, for example, that attracted new waves of lower income students, like students from low income households. It's not about, at some point of time, engineering education was largely catered to the need of middle class or upper middle class. But over the years, even students from low income households, they also started accessing engineering education. One of the important reasons is they saw that they found that this may give a better social mobility and also better to maintain a social status, you need to access engineering education. That is an important reason for the expansion of engineering education in the country. And that is an important reason also for the expansion of private sector in the engineering education. But what is happening now, that there is a change, that there is a lower demand for engineering education that you all have seen, because of the global economic slowdown and also the weak linkage of engineering graduates and the labor market. Why there is a weak linkage between engineering education and labor market? I said few of them, because of the updation of the technology, ICT, information and communication technology, and other important aspects of labor market. The engineering colleges that are not maintaining at that level, those are not being maintained. Like they are not seeing at that level the kind of technology, the kind of changes that is seen in the technology, that is not being seen. Once that is being ignored, you keep producing engineering graduates, but those will be not useful in the labor market. And that's what is Indian society is facing. We keep producing engineering graduates, but those engineering graduates are not being useful in the society. New aspiration that we saw and demand among the parents led to the market-led growth of engineering education in India. That I already said. That the kind of new aspiration we saw in 1990s, post-1990s, and that led to higher demand for engineering education, particularly in post-1990s, that led to massive expansion of engineering education, particularly in the private sector. These are some of the changes that we saw in engineering education and some recent changes also that we see in engineering education in the country. So what I am trying to say, that the role of engineering education and also the role of engineers has changed drastically. But my point is whether the engineering education system at large has understood this is a critical question that needs to be debated. If we have not understood that very clearly, then there will be really a difficulty in connecting engineers with the society. So connecting engineers or engineering education with the society is really a problem at the current time, and that problem needs to be addressed very clearly. Emerging trends in the growth of engineering education. Let us see some of the trends that how the engineering education has grown over the years. That is an important point that I want to highlight in this slide. If you see, in post-1990s, there is a liberalization of technical education, including engineering education. The engineering education sector was liberalized. A larger scope was given to the private sector to enter into the technical education and engineering education. That led to, I said, an increasing presence of private sector. Private colleges now enroll more than 90%. It was more than 95%. Slowly it has declined because there is not a huge demand for engineering education in the current time. So even today, more than 90% of the total student in engineering education is in private sector. So that is an important feature of expansion of engineering education. That feature is there is a clear liberalization of technical education. That I don't think I need to explain. I have explained a bit in the previous slide also. At the same time, when there is an expansion of engineering education through private sector, at the same time, there is a declining public investment in higher and technical education. These are two important points which are related. So what I am trying to see that there is a declining trend in the public investment in higher education and more so in technical education. I am not saying that is the only reason to what we call that is not the only reason for the private for the increasing presence of private sector, but I am saying that is an important reason. That is an important reason for the expansion of private sector, because the kind of demand that was generated in engineering education over the years, I saw that there is an there is an aspiration, a societal aspiration from the parents and other stakeholders of the society. That demand was not fulfilled by the public sector, let's say by the government. That gave a scope for the presence of private sector or increasing presence of private sector in engineering education of the country. So even today, the kind of investment that we do in higher education, technical education is not getting enough share. The kind of investment that we do in public education or the education in higher education in general, that is again in the elite public higher education institution. Let's say IITs are getting a large share, central universities are getting a large share, NITs are getting a large share. So those are the public institutions which are elite in nature, I would say, because they are only the elite students are getting into those kind of higher education institutions. Those are getting higher public investment. There are several public higher education institutions or engineering colleges in the rural area or in district level or in taluka level. They are not getting enough investment, so they are being ignored. So that is another important thing that one needs to highlight, but I am not getting into that dimension at the moment. But I should definitely say that the kind of enrollment that is happening, let's say in IITs, NITs, in central universities and others, they even don't constitute 10% of the total enrollment. Less than 10%, more than 90% of the total students are coming from colleges, which are located in rural areas, even taluka level or district level. But those are not being emphasized. I am not saying that IITs and all should not get an fund. They need, because they are also involved in research and new knowledge, in the production of new knowledge that is must for the society to grow. But at the same time, the colleges that are there in the periphery, in the taluka or in the rural area, they also needs to be emphasized. These are some of the important reasons that the lower public investment in technical and higher education has led to the massive expansion of private sector. That has led to the massive expansion of higher education, engineering education through private sector has led to declining quality. This is an important debate that is going on. I am not saying that who all are coming out of public higher education institutions, they are very tough, like they are very good in quality. I'm not saying that, but what the policy documents have highlighted, even literature has said very clearly that the expansion of private sector has contributed to the declining of quality. Because you might have seen there are several private engineering colleges in the country which are running without proper facilities, like there are not enough laboratory facilities. There are not enough teachers in the colleges. Whichever are the teachers, they are not trained well. Even the trained teachers are not getting their share properly, like salaries are not being given on time. And there are several other reasons for declining quality. I'm not getting into that. But I'm saying that there is a clear declining of the quality of engineering graduates, which is linked to the massive expansion of private sector in engineering education. That is again is linked with the poor labor market outcomes. That the engineering education that we see, the expansion of engineering education through private sector has led to declining quality, which is again visible in the labor market. There are several surveys, McKinsey and other ASCOM surveys, they have NASCOM and other surveys, they have clearly said that there are engineering graduates, I think around 80% of the engineering graduates are not eligible to be employed. They are unemployable. That means even if there are vacancies in the market or corporates or companies, they need engineering graduates to be employed, but they are not in a position to take such engineering graduates because they are not in a position to be employed. They are called unemployable. There are unemployment and unemployability. These are two different things. When we say unemployment, that means there are graduates which are eligible to be employed or they are well qualified to be employed, but they are not getting jobs. So that we can say as unemployment. But when we say unemployability, that means there are graduates and there are vacancies, but the kind of graduates that we have produced, they are not in a position to be employed. That means they have not learned the basics even to get into the labor market. So that kind of situation that is arising because of the expansion of higher engineering education. That is an important debate that is going on. What is seen in the larger context is there is an oversupply of engineering institutions in the country that has distorted the entire ecosystem of engineering. That is an important argument that is coming out. The argument is there is an expansion, I would say an unregulated expansion. This is being said very clearly, even in the knowledge, what you call, there is even NEP 2020 has said, several other policy documents, they have said very clearly that there is an oversupply of engineering education in the country that has changed the entire, that has disturbed the entire ecosystem of engineering education in the country. You might be aware of that. There are at some point of time the chairperson of apex bodies in technical education and medical education, they were being involved with several corruption cases and all that you all might have known. So there are several other such examples where there is an oversupply of engineering education and that is not being controlled or not regulated well, and that has led to several distortions in the engineering education of the country. I think you might have seen there was a report in the Hindu that there are some colleges, in engineering colleges, where you will find the teachers who those teachers are being employed in regular mode in several other colleges. So you are getting. So I am Pradeep Kumar, let's say Pradeep. So my name is being as a teacher is being recruited into 5 different colleges. Same person, same biodata, everything. So these are kind of positions, those are being highlighted in several media reports from the data that was gathered from Aicte, the apex body, which control or regulates the technical education of the country. That it's largely because there is a pressure from Aicte to show the strength of the teacher strength in the institutions. So the institution, the engineering colleges, they have considered the several other ways out to show the strength of engineering teachers. So one example I gave, that same person is being recruited in 5 different colleges in the city. So there are several. I am giving an example, but there are several other issues. I think you all might be knowing better about this. That the kind of expansion that we see, this has really disturbed the ecosystem of engineering education of the country. Many private engineering colleges have been shut down in the recent times. Some of them in UP, Haryana, even in some southern states, converted to supermarkets. Those are being reported. Private schools, gymnasiums, due to low enrollment. Even that is again creating, there is a slight increase in after 2015-16, but between 2008-9 to 2015-16, there is a drastic decline of enrollment. The intake enrollment share has declined a lot. Like let's say the intake is 100, even 20 students are not enrolling in some of the courses. In some of the courses, even 2 students are not enrolled in that particular college, some of the branches. In between, I am saying there is a slight increase now, but in between the situation was very worse. What I am trying to say towards the end of this slide, that in this argument, there is a clear crisis in engineering education. We should look at that very carefully, that there is a crisis, clear crisis in engineering education of the country. And it is found to be a countrywide phenomenon. All over the country, this crisis is happening. We all being the stakeholders, including the policymakers, they must understand and examine this issue very clearly. Because that's what I have said, it is important to understand why an engineering degree that was quite prestigious at some point of time, is it in the death knell? Means it's almost dying. Nobody is asking for an engineer. Even in the marriage market also, that is not being seen as a prestige. Why that is the case? So that's what the entire arguments that I am making, that engineering education, which was a point of prestige, was clearly helping to the social mobility, was considered as the top priority or top priority in the choice ladder among households. Why that is being in the list? So that's what the point is. There is a clear crisis, and that crisis needs to be understood very clearly in the current context. That I think we all needs to ponder over. Why that is the case? Some of the cases I have highlighted that there is a change in the skill, that those kind of skills are not being imparted in private higher education or in higher education institutions, and that may be one of the reasons for this. But there are several other reasons. You might be knowing better. In the discussion time, we can explain on that. If you see, there is a I am just giving some data, recent data, 2000 up to 2018-19, discipline-wise share of enrollment in higher education in India. If you see engineering, to 1975-76 to 2018-19, so there was an increase.
Even 2005-06 to 2016-17, there was an increase. But afterwards, there is a decline in what we call engineering. There is a decline in engineering enrollment. In engineering, medicine, there is an increase. Art science also there is a decline, but those graduates are going to commerce, management, medicine, and other disciplines. But there is a clear decline in engineering enrollment. That is very clear from All India Survey of Higher Education. This, if you see, enrollment as a share to intake in engineering education by region. I think what I did in this is I collected the data for enrollment and I collected the data for what you call intake. Then I took a share, enrollment as a share to intake. Let's say if enrollment is 70 and intake is 100, then my share is 70. That means 70 students have enrolled out of 100, which is the intake means the capacity I think the institution can take, but the real actual enrollment is less than intake. So if you see some of the cases, I have seen like explained those in 2 points of time. One is in 2012-13 and 18-19. 18-19 it is less, you can say. The share is less. I am explaining one share. Let's say in Northwest region. In Northwest region, the red bar is 39.03. What it shows? That means out of the total intake, only 39% are enrolled. Rest 60% are not enrolled. That means 60% of the total students or total seats are vacant in that particular region. If you take the macro picture. All India level, if you see, I'm not getting into each region. I'm considering all India at this point. That almost half of the seats are vacant in 2018-19. This is a dangerous thing. This is the data, AICT data. If you see the AICT data clearly says that only 51% of the total seats are being filled and the rest 49% of the seats are vacant. So this is the situation that our engineering institutions are facing in the current context. Vacant seats in engineering and technology in India. I have shown in 3 points. One is total vacant seats in percentage, percentage to total intake all institutions, and percentage to total intake in private institutions I have shown separately, the green one. If you see the percentage to total intake and percentage to total intake in private is higher. That means the enrollment in private is less than overall. That means the students in public higher education institutions, public engineering institutions, they are enrolling little better, like IITs, NITs, and other public engineering colleges or institutions. But in private engineering colleges, this is very, very less. That's why it is in the top. The share is in the top, higher than the red bar. And the blue bar shows the total vacant seats in terms of numbers. Like that in the left side, I have shown that it multiplied with lakh. So this many lakhs of seats are vacant seats. So lakhs of seats are vacant. That is very clear. I don't want to explain this very clearly, but the recent data says that in private colleges, the situation is worse. There are not many students are taking engineering courses. That is very clear. If you see the discipline-wise enrollment in engineering education, this is another important thing, the discipline-wise. What I did, I classified the disciplines into 2 categories. One is traditional discipline, the other one is IT-related discipline. Traditional means civil, mechanical engineering, and IT-related means information technology, computer science engineering, electronics and communication engineering, and other such disciplines. If you see, there is a pattern to it, the enrollment pattern. The blue one is traditional discipline and the red one is what we call the IT related. The IT related discipline and enrollment in IT related discipline is declining, and now it is increasing only. Because in between what happened, there was a shift. There is a shift from IT to traditional. I think this you might be better clear, but the data is saying why it is case. What my understanding says that there is a IT class like economic slowdown worldwide, and many IT companies were shut down. So students prefer to take engineering in terms of civil engineering discipline. They opted for civil engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. That is my hunch. I think that actually the reason. In several other writings also it has come out that was led to more enrollment in traditional discipline in that period. But nowadays, over the years, again there is a shift from traditional to IT. That because that's the reason that red curve is showing again an increase from 2015-16. There is a slight increase to 2016-17, again to 17-18 and 18-19.
So there is a increase over the years, but in between what happened, there is a shift from traditional IT to traditional. That is another important feature. Okay, let me get into now quality control. These are some of the important features of the expansion of engineering education. Let me get into quality. That will lead to the expansion of, that will lead to the understanding on assessment that I will come in. If you see the quality concerns in engineering education, this goes like this. The annual employability survey by Aspiring Minds reveals that. This is a recent survey 2019. Aspiring Minds does the survey on engineering, management and other education. And there are not many surveys on quality assessment. So this I have considered as an important source of information. Though there are methodological issues in this survey, but I'm considering this because this is a recent one and also there is no alternative to it. So Aspiring Minds survey in 2019 clearly says that 80% of Indian engineers are not employed. I just said it. There are other reports in 2005, McKinsey did a report survey that was also said that 80% of the total engineering graduates are not. NASCOM and McKinsey study also found that 80% of the Indian engineering graduates are not employable. So why this is the case? There are several critical questions or critical points that we should consider. Some of them I have highlighted. Why the engineering graduates produced from the system are so poor in quality? Some of the points I explained. I think more points should come in this. I think you all should add to this that why this is the case. Who is responsible for this? Who is responsible? Is it the lower public investment that is responsible? Or is it the unregulated expansion of private sector is responsible? Or is it the political economy is responsible? Kind of let's say with the AICT started regulating, but there is a political economy, what we call politics behind it. Because we see that in several media reports that the kind of engineering colleges those are being opened in several parts of the country, those are again being opened by politicians or their relatives. So it's difficult to control them because they are there in the parliament or in other places to what we call make the rules. So it's difficult for them to make the rules that will create problem for their institutions. So that may be one of the reasons. I'm not sure, but who is responsible for this is another critical question. Whether the expansion of engineering education is leading to a decline in the quality, that I have already explained, but is it really true? That also needs to be explained. Sorry, there is some typo. So I linked with Egypt. Sorry, Egypt. This is yes, is not there. Egypt linked with the assessment of engineering education, which is the focus of this workshop. Is it the assessment of engineering education that is leading to low quality of engineering graduates, including the curriculum and pedagogy? What are the strategies adopted by the regulatory authority, specifically by the AICT and NBA, to address this? Is there any specific what do you call this policy, specific concern or specific strategies by the AICT and NBA to address this issue, because this is a very serious issue? What are the efforts made at the institutional level to improve the quality? It's all, I'm not saying about all issues are at the macro level. At the micro level also there are several issues. So at the micro level, at the institutional level, what are the what do you call strategies those are being adopted by the institution or head of the institution that will lead to better quality of production of better quality of engineering graduates? So these are some of the critical questions that needs to be addressed in the consensus. These I think I request all of you to contribute to these kind of arguments. What is the case in the declining of quality? I have explained some of the points, but there are several other important points that we all can contribute. I said about this, but I want to give the data. That share of duplicate faculty recruited in engineering colleges in India. This is a survey that was being done by some researchers in Andhra Pradesh through AICT data. Percentage of faculty which consist of duplicate is this blue one, and percentage of institutions with duplicate teachers is the red one. In almost all states, there are several institutions which will have duplicate faculty and institutions with duplicate teachers. So both the cases, I think you are clear in both the cases that what is the share of faculty who are duplicate in that particular institution, and what are the share of institution with duplicate teachers. Even one duplicate teacher is there means that institution is being included in this data. Please read it accordingly. So what is saying that, for example, in Odisha, I am giving the example of Odisha. This figure, I have not given the figure for example, but I can add to that. It's Yeah, this is how much? Almost 100% of the institution, almost all institutions are getting what you call, almost all institutions in Odisha, let's say, have duplicate teachers in those institutions. And also in several of the, let's say, close to 40% of the institutions, percentage, 40% of the total faculty in some of the institutions are having duplicate teachers. So all these kind of, so what I'm trying to say, teachers play a critical role in imparting quality engineering institutions, but in several of the institutions, teachers are duplicate in the sense they are being they are the teachers in several other institutions as a permanent faculty. So that kind of situation is leading to low quality engineering education in the country. That is one important reason that I found, but there are several other important reasons, including regulation and other reasons that I just mentioned. We can discuss this on in the second part of the presentation, that is on discussion. Other important thing I saw in the quality concern, to link that with the quality concern, is number of PhDs awarded and its share to total UG outturn in India. So if you see the number of PhD awarded is blue bar, that is the absolute number. The absolute number has increased. It was 2,173, the 2011-12 figure, the first figure. That has increased to 7,160 in 2018-19. Annually, like in 2018-19, 7,000 plus engineering PhDs were being awarded. That is clear. There is an increase, that is very clear. But what is major, what is the issue here is that is again less than 1% of the total UG graduates we are producing. That is an important concern. Let's say we are producing 100 UG engineering graduates in the year 2018-19, even not one PhD we are finding out of the total 100 students. So less than 1% of the students who are passing a UG courses, they are passing as PhD. That means the transition between UG and PhD, between UG, let's say BTech, MTech, then PhD, that transition is very less. There are several reasons to it, because usually the students who go for engineering education, they opt for student loans, for example. So they look for labor market, like they enter into the labor market after BTech instead of doing a PhD. So they may think that I will get into the labor market and later on I will come back to the research if they are really interested. So that transition is very low. That is another important reason for getting low quality engineering teachers in the low quality engineering faculty in the engineering institutions. Because if you don't have enough PhD, quality PhD, I'm saying quality PhD, it's not about only PhD degree, it's also about the quality. So quality PhD holders in engineering education, it's difficult to get quality faculty. So that's what is being seen in the current context. We are not, this is a serious issue that is being highlighted in several policy documents. If you see the Rao committee report and all that, which were there for technical education, that clearly specifies that India is not producing enough PhD graduates who will get into the colleges for teaching. So actually there is a less interest among the faculty who teach in the, let's say, interest to get into the teaching jobs in engineering education specifically. Whichever get into the engineering colleges, they are also without PhD, because there are not enough PhD students like graduates in engineering discipline. That is another important concept. As the data says, even less than 1% of the total UG engineering graduates, let's say BTech students, are entering into the PhD. Why it is so and all, like this needs to be critically understood. It's not about only a problem with labor market, or it's an individual problem. In several other countries, the students, engineering students who are entering into the PhD degree, they are given enough scope, like scholarships and all, to pursue engineering, because their opportunity cost of pursuing engineering is higher, sorry, PhD is higher. It's not, you cannot compare them with social science or humanities students, because they don't have enough scope in the labor market, for example. That is another important reason they get into the PhD. But for an engineering graduate, let's say an engineering graduate UG level in Aicte, he or she might get a good job in the labor market. Why that engineering student will get into the PhD until and unless you give enough scholarship to them to survive and to benefit, to get other benefits and all. Until and unless you give enough scope for them financially or otherwise, they will not get into the PhD. That's what actually happening in Indian context. That's the reason we are getting less than 1% of the total engineering students, UG students in PhD. in the entire context, I want to explain where do we fail, because I said that there is a crisis in engineering. But where do we fail in this? That is an important question that we all should ponder over. We need to transforming engineering colleges from primarily teaching institutions to teaching and research institutions. That is there is a type of mistake. It is NEP 2020, not NEPP. NEP 2020 that has also emphasized this, that there is a clear need for shifting of primarily teaching to teaching and research. What is happening? More than 90% of the total engineering institutions in the country are teaching only. There is no research. Even faculties are not doing any research in several engineering colleges in the country. So that is an important weakness of our Indian engineering education system. But how to do about it and all that, that needs to be understood very clearly. One important point that has come out is collaborating with industry and all. But how far we are doing that and all that, that is also another critical question that needs to be understood. That needs, I am trying to say, improving the research ecosystem in engineering colleges, specifically in non-elite engineering institutions. In IITs, NITs, and several other elite engineering institutions, even in private also, there are several elite engineering colleges, big engineering colleges, which are doing really good. They have an ecosystem, a research ecosystem. They have a good research ecosystem, but there are several other engineering colleges which are not having a good research ecosystem. So that is really creating problem. That is really creating problem in imparting good quality engineering graduates. So that needs to be addressed. Enhance societal and industry linkage. It's not about institution industry only. Societal, society industry interlinkage, better curricula and pedagogical arrangements, including compulsory internship as part of the training. That is being said, compulsory internship. But I did a survey in Delhi. Only 40% of the total students have done internships. I did it for my PhD, a little old in 2010, but I don't think picture has changed a lot in last 10 years. The picture is almost kind of fuzzy, saying that many are not getting internship opportunities. So internship is a critical component for for better quality engineering colleges, for better quality engineering education. That is not happening in several engineering colleges. In the changing labor market, I said in the beginning of my presentation, the labor market is changing. That needs a different kind of engineering graduate. So that's what I am saying, that in the changing labor market situation, apart from having a good conceptual understanding of engineering knowledge or mathematics and other engineering sciences, the students also need to develop generic skills such as creative and critical thinking, problem solving ability, decision making. But my question is our assessment considering this? This is the critical question that needs to be understood. Because this platform is for assessment and pedagogical changes. So what I'm trying to say, the kind of assessment that we are doing in the engineering education, whether these critical components like critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, other social skills are getting any scope in the assessment procedure. That needs to be understood very clearly. If not, we must get into this and we must include these skills also in the assessment. Otherwise, if you only assess mathematics and other technical skills, then again we are failing to produce a good engineering graduate. Only 2.5% of Indian engineers possesses the skills in artificial intelligence. This is what the Aspiring Mind survey tells. 1.5% to 4.5% of engineering possesses the necessary skills in data engineering. And while only 2.8% to 5.3% are qualified in wireless technologies that industry requires. These are some of the advanced technologies that industry requires. But we are producing very less number of graduates in these kind of skills, like artificial intelligence, data engineering, other wireless technologies and all that. These are some of the new technologies that have come out in the engineering education. Even at the global level, these are being highlighted, but in Indian context, still we are not able to produce such engineering graduates which are required in the industry. So that is another important reason where we see that we are not getting good engineering graduates. Teaching and assessment of engineering education, findings from the field. I did a survey that I said, I am sharing some of my findings that I found from that engineering survey. Survey data 1178 undergraduate engineering students in Delhi I did. My central question here was what kinds of teaching and evaluation methods were practiced in engineering programs and to what extent? That was my central question in that particular survey. What I found, lecture method is still dominant in the teaching learning of engineering institutions compared to technical demonstration and laboratory work.
I found that there are very few engineering institutions who are largely relying on laboratory work and technical demonstration. Again, classroom teaching is happening largely there in engineering. Classroom teaching may be one of the important pedagogical approach in humanities and social sciences, but in engineering, if you consider that as a major teaching learning procedure, it's problematic. That's the point I want to say. Around half of the engineering students have reported that they have never gone through any field work on industrial visit during their entire program of study. In the entire program of study, they didn't go for any field work or industrial visit. Close to 50%. Can you imagine that most of the students, they got their degree without going even a single field work and industrial visit. Those are important components to get a quality engineering, to get quality engineering graduates. Majority of students, 93%, reported that an end of course examination is used as part of the evaluation process. Only end of course examination, not much industrial visit, practical skills and all, evaluating through practical skills or evaluating through societal and other critical skills. Those are not part of the assessment procedure. Students' involvement in activities other than classroom teaching, for example, research projects with teachers, engineering internships, is significantly less. Though the scope for this is higher in government, I found that in government engineering institutions, the scope of research projects and internship was higher, but on an average, very less number of students got into the engineering internship and research projects. These are some of the skills that really will improve the quality of engineering graduates, but our system is not able to help in producing. Let us get into NEP 2020 and higher education or engineering education specific. Does it offer anything new? We have several problems in engineering education and also higher education. We need to critically understand these issues. Before getting into, before ending, let me highlight some of the important points of what NEP offers. Need for closure. NEP says need for closer collaboration between industry and institution. That has been said several times in earlier policy documents also. What are the pathways? How we'll do, how we are going to address that is not being said. And I don't know how, even though not many are successful in this. We keep saying this, but not many are successful. I think you all might have better experience on this between collaboration between industry and institution. I want to add that the society is also required. It's not about industry institution, it's society industry institution or community industry institution. Community should play a critical role in this. But it's very, very difficult to see what are the pathways to communicate or what are the pathways to link industry, community or society and industry, society and community. That is not being said very clearly in the policy document. Not only these policy documents, in several other policy documents as well. Eroding this, it says silos between technical education and other disciplines. This is a critical point, that the silos, the problems that is there to what we call mixing technical education with other discipline is still a problem. Like even IIT, if you see, we have Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, even NITs and other private higher education institutions also, they are offering courses in social sciences. But whether the students are getting interest in those social science courses or like economics and other social science courses is still a problem. If students are not getting interest, where is the issue? Where the issue lies is also not clear. This is being clearly said well before, but where are we failing is not clear. Even again, it is being emphasized in NEP 2020, but the situation is not clear, the idea is not clear yet. I think you all might have a better idea that how to orient engineering students to opt for social science courses. Is it the case that the kind of social science courses that those are being offered is not giving anything new to the student? That may be one of the reasons. If you are not getting anything new by offering social science courses, then why I should offer for that? That is also another important point. Preparing professionals, engineering graduates in cutting-edge research areas such as artificial intelligence. That's what the NEP 2020 says. 3D machining, genomic studies, big data analysis, all that. But do we have institutional provisioning of that, or do we have institutional base for that in offering several new courses which are demanded in the labor market? It's not overnight we can offer any one course. We need trained teachers, we need laboratories, we need several other equipments to impart such courses or courses in such disciplines. Are we ready for that? And another thing, suppose we will be ready on some of these skills, the labor market might change, and the skills might be updated, and we might need to offer several other courses in updated skills.
So if you are going to do that, then the system should be updated accordingly. Creating internship opportunities for students, that also NEP 2020 very clearly said, but this is failing for long. We are not able to create enough internships for students. That another important point that we are losing in the system. So that's another important point I want to say, that NEP says some issues which are being said earlier, but how we are going to do that is also not clear. I don't think AICT also having any answer to the kind of questions that is being raised in this. Now my last slide will be problems are well known. We know some problems, we found that, but what next? How we'll go about it? I have given some answers to it, but we can debate on those. These are subject to critical comments from all of you. Engineering education in the country is at a crossroad. I think is a crisis that I have already said. A fresh approach is required in its expansion and delivery. We completely need, to my mind, we completely need a fresh approach on all that. Important to reflect on the changing dynamics of engineering education. It's very, very important to reflect the kind of changes that the engineering education is facing and accordingly addressing the issue. Specifically the quality concerns and the assessment techniques. These are two important points I highlighted, that the quality concerns of engineering graduates and also the assessment techniques that we are following that needs to be clearly re-emphasized or redesigned. Bringing students from the periphery to the center of assessment. Actually, even today, students are in the periphery of assessment. They are not in the center. In several good engineering institutions or good higher education institutions, assessment students play a critical role in assessment procedure. That is not there in Indian case. In case of India, establishing a strong synergy between industry and institution, that is involving industries for teaching learning. We should involve industries in teaching learning. It is also it's not only at the end we will give collaboration. From the beginning they should be involved in teaching learning, in assessment and all other aspects. Then only they will create interest in this. Understanding the classroom diversity and thereby redesigning the assessing strategy. This is an important point. I want to spend few minutes on this. Like, we have to understand the classroom diversity. When we say the kind of classroom that we saw in 90s, 80s, 2000, in engineering education, that is not there. So there is a clear diversity in the classroom. There are several students from low-income households. They have entered into the engineering education. So the classroom composition has changed. Once that has changed, the teacher who are teaching entering into the classroom, they must understand this, that the student composition has changed. Accordingly, your teaching learning should change. And also the assessment procedure should change. That will also help all the students, or the students from particularly lower income strata. They will to understand the skills, to understand the techniques better. Otherwise, what will happen? Again, this will be skewed. This will be skewed in the sense the students who are from better off families, they will only understand the issues better, rather than the students from all strata, all socio-economic compositions of the society. So that's an important thing. I don't think we all are looking at that, or we all are considering that while we are in the classroom. That is an important point that needs to be understood. New normal of online teaching and assessment, that is, we all are getting into new normal. Even today we are in that platform. NEP 2020 has emphasized. COVID-19 pandemic has given another boost to online teaching and all, but how we are going to do that, and in the assessment how we are going to do, that is another important thing that needs to be addressed. We have an array of hope, several points that are NEP 2020 has discussed. We also hope something new from that. In the next 20 years is trying to serve the future of higher and technical education in the country, but how far we are going for that, let us see. With this, I am ending my point. I hope you all might have understood my core arguments, particularly from an interdisciplinary perspective or social science perspective. I would be happy to interact and learn a lot from all of you. Thank you again for VIT for providing me an opportunity to share some of my views. Thank you, Basim. It's over to you.